It has been almost 2 years now since I first discovered the wonders of Square Off. Back in late 2022, we covered how it was a stance-breaking machine. It possessed the power to poise break most enemies in 2 to 3 heavy hits. Fast forward to late 2024, and the move is still one of the best Ashes of War in the game. Giving this move a massive buff would be unnecessary. Patch 1.14 gave this move a massive buff by buffing Rellana's cameo. A scarab holds the square-off Ash of War north of the Worshipper's Wood Site of Grace in Shifra. This ash is usable on all infusible straight swords, but only straight swords. I prefer using a heavy broadsword for this move, since we can pick it up from the Pneumatic Merchant right below the start of the game. Square-off is, of course, a stance Ash of War. The light attack is a fast diagonal swipe that does great poise damage, with little startup time and the minuscule cost of 6 FP. This is perfect to dish out some damage at any point in a boss fight because of how fast this whole move is. The heavy attack gets even better. The move is a thrust attack ahead of your character. If you can land the move, you'll do a stupid 40 poise damage on hit. That is enough to poise break a plethora of bosses. Morgott, Godric, Malekith, and the camera in Shadowkeep are some of the enemies you can knock down in only 2 heavy attacks. I made sure that this run was a max New Game Plus, where enemy poise is the hardest to break. If Square Off is still a poise-breaking machine at this New Game Plus cycle, it'll do the same, if not much better, on the lower cycles. Before we step into the fight, we should use our buffs to make our fight that much faster. My buff order was Physique, Golden Vow, Electrify Armament, Flame Grant Me Strength, and a Blue Flask. Golden Vow is the best overall incantation buff in the game. Electrify Armament boosts our damage a bit, and our cool factor considerably. Flame Grant Me Strength may have a rather short duration of 30 seconds, however, the amount of damage you can deal in those first 30 seconds of a fight make the FP cost well worth it. With that new buff to Rellana's cameo, we can hold our stance for a much shorter time than before to receive the damage buff. 1 second after you hold down the Ash of War button, a red glow will emanate from your character indicating the talisman is active. Once you use the move for a little while, you'll get the hang of the timing and be able to fire off the Ash of War as fast as possible. The buff is so extreme that when tested out on a Godric soldier, my damage went from 1656 all the way to 2402. That is a 45% boost. I don't know of any other single buff that gives you a boost this huge for so little effort. Before we elaborate any further on the build, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the build videos. There is much more to come here on the Jersey side. Our talismans are based around powering up Square Off and the Broadsword moveset for the moments we don't want to use the move but need to keep enemy poise down. The Two-Headed Turtle Talisman keeps our stamina up by increasing its regen rate. The Shard of Alexander gives us a flat 15% buff to Square Off. Rellana's cameo gives us that ludicrous power boost to Square Off if we time it correctly. Finally, we have the Two-Handed Sword Talisman to boost our standard attacks. Let me note here that this talisman and two-handing your weapon will not increase the power of Square Off. The two-handing attack boost you get from the strength scaling will not calculate into the power of the Ash of War. This talisman is purely for R1s and R2s of the weapon, as this build utilizes both the Broadsword moveset and the Square Off Ash of War. If you want to focus on the Ash of War, feel free to swap this one for the Spear Talisman, as the heavy attack deals pierce damage. We'll also talk about a potential stat relocation later. The only time I switched up my talismans was for the Radahn and Tricky Mick fight. I switched out the Two-Headed Turtle Talisman and Rellana's cameo for the Dragon Crest Great Shield and the Golden Braid. I'm sure I could have beaten those two silly billies with my standard loadout, but the Eagles game was coming on at 1, and your boy here was running low on time. Our stats at RL 170 are 60 Vigor, 21 Mind to use our spells and Square Off, 35 Endurance to light roll with the Noble's armor set, 54 Strength to meet the soft cap while two-handing, at least 10 Dexterity to use the Broadsword, and 50 Faith for our incantations. If you don't care much for Electrify Armament or want to lean heavier on the Ash of War, be sure to move 25 points from Faith and 1 point from Mind into Strength. This will get us to the final soft cap of 80, increasing Square Off's power even further. Square Off has been in the game since release, and has been great the entire time. While poise-breaking juggernauts, such as Flame of the Redmanes, have long since been nerfed, Square Off is here over 2 years later, better than ever.